Good evening from Martha's Vineyard NAACP and partnering with the AdMeTech Foundation. I'm Dr. Lorna Chambers Andrade, retired professor of nursing education, pre-med, and gerontology. I'm the board member and health chair committee for Martha's Vineyard branch of the NAACP. I also was a former vice president for many years, 14 years to be exact. And last, the NEAC, New England Area Council Health Education Chair. On behalf of our branch, we want to thank all of you for coming this evening. And for those of you who have come since 2018, a special thank you as we partnered with the AdMeTech Foundation. Now, let me share a little bit about the AdMeTech Foundation for those of you who don't know. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization leading in the battle against prostate cancer through the advancement of early detection and treatment. The mission is to end prostate cancer as a patient care crisis and a social economical problem. The Manogram, yes, I said Manogram, is the groundbreaking awareness with education and advocacy programs. I want to share with you that early detection, 100% survival in 5 years. But with a late diagnosis, as is 28% survival in 5 years, lots have to be done. So we must get our men, our Black and brown men, and all men to go through the educational detection and prevention classes and what is offered to them by a call of action, of which these healthcare professionals will share with you tonight. And we want to give a special thank you to the founder and president, CEO, Dr. Faina Stern. And at this time, I would like to introduce to you a champion of our state prostate cancer program. And that is no other than Senator Julian Sayre, Cape and Islands, also known as the Assistant Majority Whip. So, Senator, go forward.
Thank you, Doctor, for that warm introduction. And it's nice to be with all of y'all tonight. And this is maybe the second or third year I've participated in this event. Always good to see Dr. Stern, who knows me back from my days when I was a mid-level bureaucrat at the Department of Public Health. And I just really want to thank the NAACP and Martha's Vineyard for pulling this together once again. I'm going to talk about just briefly sort of three pieces related to prostate cancer. One from the health disparities perspective, two, talking a little bit about step therapy work we've been working on, and then the third from a personal perspective. While prostate cancer survival among American men has improved, in recent decades, it does remain the most common cancer of men of all races, and is the second leading cause of cancer death for Black men. That's also true of white men and Hispanic men. But what we see with prostate cancer is that prostate cancer has the widest racial disparities of any cancer, right? So Black men have a 51% higher mortality rate than white men with prostate cancer. Black men also have a 60% greater incidence of prostate cancer than white men. So when we talk about that manogram, the work that we need to do is particularly crucial in education among Black communities. These disparities exist for a number of reasons, but particularly related to screening patterns, discrimination, the presence of comorbidities, and studies have found that a lot of this is around a health equity issue, and so part of the way that we combat that we address real health equities is being very targeted and specific about the work that we're doing. The second piece I want to talk about is legislation that I've been shepherding for a number of years related to step therapy. So ensuring that patients receive the health care that they need And the healthcare they first need, the treatment they need first, is part of addressing health disparity. So step therapy refers to the practice of health insurers using a practice of mandating a pre-prescribed selected medical treatment regime in steps. Usually these are less costly generic medications to patients until the treatment is deemed ineffective. So the goal of step therapy, at least the goal of it, is reduce drug costs. It also is known as fail first, right? Meaning a patient's medical condition must fail to improve after a period of time on a step one drug before the insurance company will approve the doctor to switch them to preferred medication. So in my view, step therapy really doesn't work. It prevents sick people from receiving the medical treatments they need and that their doctors feel are best suited to them. It also can really lead to worsening symptoms and complications. Think repeat visits to the emergency department or hospitalizations. And we know that the step therapy approach disproportionately affects patients who require specialized care for chronic diseases and also care for cancer. So I filed legislation in the Senate. We actually passed that legislation at the end of the 2020 legislation. One of the only handful of non-COVID related bills that we passed in 2020 was related to step therapy reform. The Senate took up and passed step therapy reform again this summer, and then the House followed suit. And it was something we were trying to reconcile before the end of the session. The formal sessions ended on July 31st. We couldn't get it done, but we've been working diligently to find resolution. There were a few technical differences between the Senate and the House bill. The House actually just passed an agreement that I expect the Senate's going to take up in short order that's going to finally implement step therapy reforms. The bill would ensure basic safeguards for patients who are undergoing step therapy. It'll allow patients and providers to have a transparent and expedient process for appealing step therapy. So this is a big deal. It just was passed today. An updated version of the bill, a compromised version of the bill, was passed in the Senate today. In the House today. I'm hoping the Senate will do it soon. So this is good news and something we've worked on for quite some time. And then just finally, I want to talk about how prostate cancer has affected me personally. My grandfather and my uncle had prostate cancer and had successful outcomes with it. And actually last fall, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer, early stage prostate cancer, and has been undergoing treatment. And I think that treatment's been quite successful. With that track record, I'm expecting I'm a likely candidate for prostate cancer as well. I'm still pretty young, but not too young. So I think I'm 36. So in 4 years, I'll be due for that screening. But I think it's really important when we talk about healthcare, especially healthcare with men, that men are talking about healthcare. We know that men are actually not very good at health-seeking behavior. Women are actually much better overall statistically at seeking out healthcare. So I'm going to keep talking about prostate cancer, to make sure that that men are getting screened. And so tonight's event is just really, really important. So again, thank you to the NAACP and Martha's Vineyard for pulling this together. It's good to be with my longtime friends here who've been such pioneers in this work. And I'm really encouraged that the step therapy legislation looks like it's heading to the governor's desk and it's going to be signed into law. So thank you so much for having me.
That's good news. And we thank you for being here with us again. And at this time, we were going to have a testimony from Ronald Roberts. However, I know that he's on the ferry. And so we're probably going to have to move him along until he can get to the phone to get to us. So we're going to move along, and I'd like to introduce the group to our founder and CEO, President, Dr. Faina Stern, President of AdMeTech Foundation. She's going to give an overview of the importance of prevention and early detection of prostate cancer as the means of improving patient outcomes and reducing the health disparities. She will also address recent advances in diagnoses of prostate cancer and describe a newly launched prostate cancer equity program. So at this time, we welcome Dr. Stern.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andrade. It's always a pleasure to work with you and with Martha's Vineyard and AACP. While listening to Julian, sir, I was thinking about our first meeting at the Department of Public Health, probably over 10 years ago, Julian, if I'm not mistaken. And I think we pretty much hit it off right away. It is nice to see progression of Center Sir's career, and it is with great pride we've been watching his becoming a part of the leadership team as assistant majority whip. Because in the past we had so many interferences with PowerPoint presentations and shared slides and all of it, we made it a policy to pre-record my presentations for virtual events. So at this point, Emma, if it is possible to initiate video of my presentation.
My name is Faina Stern. I'm a physician and founder of the AdMeTech Foundation. I'd like to express my gratitude to Martha's Vineyard and AACP for the long-term partnership, including this event. Also, I'd like to thank AdMeTech staff, Thomas Satam, Emma Coyard, and Trisha Kinney in particular. AdMeTech Foundation provides leadership for the groundbreaking programs in prostate cancer at the state, national, and international levels. Our programs have been transforming patient care for everyone and reducing health disparities in Black men. Dr. Ike Madeke of Mass General Brigham will describe recent advances in treatment, while I will address recent advances in screening and diagnosis. I'll also describe our new prostate cancer equity program launched recently to bring these advances in patient care to every man in Massachusetts and eliminate health disparities. Prostate Cancer Equity Program is an integral part of the AdMeTech ongoing statewide program in prostate cancer that created a Massachusetts model of national leadership in public awareness, medical education, and research. We are grateful to Senator Julian Sir and other members of the local delegation to the State House who made this program possible. Our primary focus is on high-risk men, Black, Hispanic, and Latino individuals, and all men with family history of prostate cancer and increasing age, 50 and older. This program was initiated since 2009 in collaboration with multiple organizations and has three components: public awareness, medical education, and research. For public awareness and education, we had reached well over 36,000 men since January 2020. While we are dealing with COVID pandemic, prostate cancer cannot wait. And yet many men avoid visits to their doctors out of understandable concern of contracting coronavirus. Unfortunately, delays in prostate cancer care can cause reduced quality of life and even loss of life. Clinical facilities created a safe environment for patient care, including virtual visits, telehealth, ongoing in-person care, doctor's appointments and testing, and medical procedures such as biopsies and treatment. Ongoing care is particularly important for Black, including Hispanic men, who are 2.5 times more likely to die compared to white men in our country. However, early detection saves lives and eliminates health disparities. With early detection of prostate cancer, every man is alive in 5 years. In sharp contrast, with late diagnosis, when cancer is spread to other organs, only about 28% of men remain alive during the same time. In prostate cancer, screening with blood tests called PSA is the best tool we have for prevention and early detection, critical for saving lives and reducing health disparities. During pandemic, it is more important than ever to take charge of your prostate health. It is important to know your risk factors, such as Black heritage, family history of prostate cancer, particularly in a brother or father, and increasing age, 50 and older. You can ensure early detection. During annual visit, ask your doctor about PSA blood test and digital rectal exam. You need to talk to your doctor starting at the age of 40 if you have risk factors, or at the age of 45 if you do not have risk factors I just mentioned. Before screening, it is important to avoid exercise or sex, which may impact your testing results for 1 week. After screening, you need to ask your doctor if your test is normal or if you need to see a prostate cancer expert for further evaluation. The centerpiece of our medical education is AdMeTech's annual Global Summit on Precision Diagnosis and Treatment of Prostate Cancer. The latest 6th annual conference took place this year between September 22nd and 24th. Our summit brings together the key international experts representing every clinical expertise to review the best emerging clinical practices. This educational event showed rapid advances in patient care. In screening, our summit supports clinical guidelines for early detection recommended by the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, consisting of over 28 cancer hospitals and their leading experts. As mentioned, high-risk men, including men with a Black heritage or family history of prostate cancer, are recommended to start screening at the age of 40. Average risk men should start PSA screening at the age of 45. This first or baseline PSA result in younger men has emerged as one of the most important indicators for developing lethal prostate cancer long-term over 10 years. In diagnostics, we have seen emergence of very accurate non-invasive tools such as blood, urine, and saliva analysis for molecular and genetic markers, and advanced imaging, including ultrasound, MRI, and molecular imaging. These non-invasive diagnostics, highlighting the importance of PSA screening, shifted past concerns about screening for prostate cancer into a dustbin of history. For example, these diagnostics can determine which individual man has an increased risk of life-threatening, rapidly progressing prostate cancer, improve early detection, critical for saving lives, reduce unnecessary procedures such as biopsy and treatment, and optimize selection of personalized care for each man, including careful observation or active surveillance, minimally invasive interventions, or immediate radical treatment. High-risk individuals, including Black men, carry higher risk of both mortality, dying of prostate cancer, and unnecessary procedures. Consequently, it is critical for them to have access to precision diagnostics that determine for each individual man if he should or should not have invasive biopsy or treatment, and what options in clinical care are best for him. Unfortunately, in Massachusetts, Black men are less likely to have precision diagnostics, such as advanced imaging, MRI, or molecular imaging, or genetic testing, or undergo life-saving treatment compared to white men. Prior to undergoing invasive biopsy or treatment, it is important for each man to discuss with his doctor if any testing is available to determine if these procedures are actually needed, and if yes, what kind of options would work best for him. For example, in this slide, magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, shows prostate cancer lesions and guides biopsy needles with precision. AdMeTech has led research development and large-scale clinical implementation of prostate MRI since 1998. Our summit highlighted the importance of MRI in Black men who are more likely to have lesions in the front part of the prostate that are difficult to find by physical exam or standard blind biopsies performed without accurate imaging. In men with prostate cancer, There are two pillars of the current diagnostics, MRI and genetics. While MRI shows cancer location and local spread or stage, genetic analysis of cancer tissue reveals underlying biology and probability of progression. Emerging data indicate the importance of genetic testing for many high-risk men, Black men in particular, for selecting the most effective treatment. With this precision diagnostics, we can now accurately determine if each individual man has a slow-growing, what we call harmless prostate cancer, or needs a careful observation, or an aggressive version of prostate cancer requiring immediate life-saving treatment. More recently, molecular imaging has been shown to play an important role in staging of prostate cancer, including presence of metastatic spread and detecting a return of prostate cancer after treatment. For example, PSMA molecular imaging has been approved by FDA within the last year and become available at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute since August 21. On the left, a traditional bone scan shows no metastasis. However, on the right, molecular imaging demonstrates an extensive metastasis. This information is important for selecting appropriate treatment. We are proud to have led research and development of molecular imaging since 2001. Based on the evidence coming from military medicine, from veteran administration, our summit concluded that equal access to high-quality care is the key factor in improving patient outcomes for all men and eliminating health disparities in Black men. It is particularly important now with so many novel diagnostic and therapeutic approaches, ensuring high-quality personalized patient care. Without equal access to these advances in patient care, we will see a widening gap in health inequalities, including survival and mortality. Consequently, AdMeTech launched the Prostate Cancer Equity Program in Massachusetts in collaboration with Mass General Brigham, UMass, and other clinical institutions with the mission to save lives and deliver high-quality care. Supporting organizations include Latino Health Insurance Program and NAACP New England Area Conference with their multiple branches located across the state, including Martha's Vineyard. Our goal is to expedite access to leading experts who use the most advanced approaches to screening, diagnosis, and treatment available today. This program helps men to find an expert for the initial or a second opinion, in-person or virtual visits. Any Massachusetts man age 40 and older can take part. Our priority focus is on Black, Hispanic, and Latino men who are at higher risk of prostate cancer, delayed diagnosis, poor quality care, and death. Based on our experience in Plymouth County, we believe that in Massachusetts, with its leading hospitals and universal access to care, our prostate cancer equity program will be able to eliminate health disparities. Experts of the prostate cancer equity program can address any questions about prostate health, from assessing an individual healthy man's personal risk of cancer to informing men about all available options before and after screening, biopsy, and treatment. We are committed to supporting men during every step of their medical journey to ensure that no man is left behind or struggling alone. To achieve this goal, we created a streamlined VIP-style process of patient referral and care, reflecting how a physician like me takes care of my family and friends. This process consists of 3 components. 1, AdMeTech Foundation's coordinator collects basic information and matches individual patients' need with the appropriate state's experts. A clinical organization designates a patient navigator who works with multiple schedulers to expedite a medical visit. If an expert recommends any next steps, for example, additional testing or treatment, AdMeTech's coordinator and patient navigator work with men on the appropriate follow-up. To ensure successful implementation of this program, AdMeTech has created a network of leading state experts committed to eliminating health disparities, develop an effective process for patient care and follow-up, as mentioned, recruited community coordinators in high-risk areas who mobilized a network of over 100 program ambassadors, community, organization, and church leaders, held multiple focus groups to develop program materials. Our current goal is to identify and mobilize appropriate organizations and individuals so that men, their primary doctors and caregivers, have access to this program. Trisha Keeney, a member of the AdMeTech Foundation staff, serves as a statewide coordinator for the Prostate Cancer Equity Program. If you have any questions or need assistance, please contact Trisha by phone, 617-523-3535, or by email, coordinator@admetechfoundation.org. Thank you for your attention.
That was wonderful, Dr. Say, and we'll get back to you with questions a little later. And I think at this time, we're going to move forward, and I believe Dr. Ike Maduke is here with us. Is that correct?
Yes,
He's
he
on
is.
mute. I think he's on mute. Dr. Ike Maduke,
Yes, I'm here.
unmute yourself. Ah, wonderful. So good to have you. Let me talk a little bit about you to share with our group.
Perfect.
First of all, he's a medical doctor, PhD, urologist and fellow, combined Harvard program in urology and oncology, and with Mass General Hospital and the Brigham Women Hospital. And Dr. Ike Maduke was with us last year, and I just want to say that we're so happy to have him again this year with us.
Thank you.
And we know how busy he is. It looks like he just got out of surgery again.
Yeah, I have to run right back, to be honest.
Oh my,
Yeah, I'm
wow.
on call, so got some emergency loading.
Okay, so you're going to give us some reviews on recent advances in prostate cancer and treatments.
So good evening.
Good evening.
And so yes, I'll just be sharing some updates on some of the advances with regards to prostate cancer treatments. And so the diagnosis of cancer, it can be daunting for some people. I like to think of it, at least specific to prostate cancer, with regards to 3 questions. And so the first is, is when you get a diagnosis, is cure possible? The second is cure necessary? And then finally, is cure possible when it is necessary, right? And so that question about cancer and whether it's necessary might be conflicting to some people, right? With regards to, well, I have cancer, so obviously cure is necessary, but that's not always the issue with prostate cancer, and we'll delve into some of the reasons why. And so with regards to localized prostate cancer, now that's cancer that hasn't spread outside of the prostate. Really, there are 2 modes of recommendations or treatments. The first is active surveillance versus active treatments, okay? And that really is based on the risk category of the cancer. And that's based on, at least on the Western world, on the NCCN guidelines, which utilized 3 measures, okay? So that's the clinical stage. So that's based on the exam from your urologist, imaging findings. So is the lymph nodes that are enlarged? Is the MRI showing the prostate going outside of the prostate? Things like that. And then the PSA level, and then the grade group. Okay, so that Gleason score. And so those 3 things will give you a risk category. And essentially, you can fall into one of 3 categories. There's a little bit more, but usually it's one of 3 categories. Okay, so low risk, that PSA is under 10. That grade group is 1, or Gleason score 6. You might see that on your biopsy report. or clinical stage of T1. So your PCP got a PSA, it was elevated, and that's why you got biopsied. And so that's like a T1C clinical stage, if you will. Intermediate risk, okay, that PSA now is between 10 to 20. That grade group is 7, so that Gleason score is a 7. That can be a 3+4 or 4+3. And so this intermediate can actually be what we call favorable or unfavorable based on that 3+4 versus 4+3. And then finally, high risk, okay? And for high risk, that PSA can be above 20. That Gleason score starts being around 8, 9, or 10. Or that clinical stage is where you can start feeling, the prostate is, maybe that cancer is starting to get outside of the prostate, even on digital rectal exam. And so based on those risk categories, you make a recommendation for what you need to do. Now, most urologists will agree that for low risk, you fall under that active surveillance point. So we no longer recommend active treatments, whether that be radiation or surgery, for that grade group 1, PSA less than 10, okay? Now, active surveillance doesn't mean that nothing is being done. Usually that will encompass serial PSAs, serial biopsies, plus or minus MRIs. And if disease should progress, then you move from active surveillance to active treatments, okay? And we know that most men, probably about 50% will progress within the first 3 to 5 years to active treatment from active surveillance. This is just some data from our group that's shown that for young men, okay, this was considered under 60 years old, active surveillance was a safe option. And so you can put these men on active surveillance and you don't miss that window of cure should they progress. And so this is it's an option that you shouldn't be concerned about if you're placed on for low risk disease. But now let's move on from active surveillance to actual active treatment and talk about some of the advances in this realm. Now, typically, the treatments are based usually on surgery or radiation. In regards to surgery, traditionally used to be what's called an open radical prostatectomy. For the vast majority of patients in the United States, people are not getting open surgery anymore. It's usually minimally invasive with the robot. Okay. Now the robot it's most places would have what's called the Da Vinci SI or XI, and we'll talk about some advances in regards to the robot itself. In regards to radiation, we'll touch base on that with some of the advancements in that realm. For the most part, you can think of radiation as external beam. So you lay on the table, the beams are coming in, they're targeted to the prostate, versus brachytherapy, which has your seeds. No one's using seeds anymore. Now they put the catheters into the prostate. You get high dose brachytherapy, the catheters come out. So this is that robot we alluded to. And so the surgeon sits on the side. He has a surgical assistant at the bedside. This is the patient here. The arms of the robot go into the patient, and the surgeon controls the arms over here and is able to perform the surgery. Be able to make more precise movements. There's magnification that's better with the robot. Blood loss is definitely improved with the robot versus the open procedure, and length of stay is also much shorter. At our facility now, most of these patients will go home on the same day after a prostatectomy. Estimated blood loss is usually less than 100, probably more about 50 cc's, as opposed to the open route where you're looking at about, anywhere from 2 to 500 cc's, and usually in the hospital for about 2 days. I will stress though that oncologically, there's no difference between the two procedures. So for a urologist who performs open surgery all the time, oncologically, the outcomes are the same compared to a urologic surgeon who performs these procedures with the robot all the time. So don't let that persuade you if your surgeon is still performing these the open way. And so again, this robot here is what we call a multi-port robot, which is what most places have. And so again, this is the patient here. You have 4 robotic arms. They're the silver ones here. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have an assistant here, and sometimes you also have a 12 here. So you have about 6 incisions through which you perform the procedure. One of the advances now, which we have at several sites, it's called the single port, okay? And so you take all these arms and essentially you have one port that's placed in the midline. plus or minus an assistant, okay? And what happens, those four arms are all combined, and essentially they go through this midline trocar, they go into the abdominal cavity, and they expand. And so you still have the four arms, you still have the camera, but it's all going through this one port. And so we've shown data from our group that pain requirement is much lower with a single port. Makes sense, you have one incision. You know, before, most patients were going home on the same day with the multi-port. All our patients were going home with a single port incision. So again, shorter length of stay, shorter pain requirements, and equivocal oncological outcomes using the single port. So surgically, from a robotic standpoint, this is the newest advance, and they're still sort of trying to get the single port to even be much better. It's just a picture again of the single port. Again, one incision, patient head is here. One of the benefits here is you can perform this what's called extraperitoneally. So you're not going into the abdominal cavity, you can stay on the outside. And so that allows the surgeon to keep the patient flat, as opposed to when you perform the multi-port, where you have to have the patient tilted with the head down and the legs up. And so for some patients who might be maybe heavier than the general population, or they might have problems with breathing that can't tolerate the air that needs to be put into the inside to operate, this is a procedure where you bypass all of that and you're able to get a robotic procedure while being kept flat. So again, one of the nice advantages of the single port. Some patients have had a lot of surgery in the abdominal cavity, so there's scar tissue everywhere, and it's not safe, again, to go into the abdominal cavity to perform the surgeries. So you can bypass that whole cavity, again, by using the single port to sort of stay above that level and still perform this procedure. So great advancements, wonderful tool, still being widely adopted. So there's still a lot of growth for other urologists to start using this platform. I will preface this by saying, when you go to your surgeon, you're choosing the tailor, not the sewing machine. So what I mean by that is that at the end of the day, most surgeons can operate with what they're given. And so if your surgeon doesn't have a single port, that doesn't mean your outcomes are worse. At the end of the day, you know, it's really down to the surgeon. So not the tool that the surgeon is using. But the single port is one of the advancements in this field. We'll touch base quickly on radiation, but before I do that, I also want to highlight focal therapy. And so there's different forms of focal therapy for prostate cancer. So you can use cryotherapy, that's you stick a needle, you kind of freeze the cells around, and then HIFU. Okay, so that's high intensity focused ultrasound. Now you might have heard about this. It's not widely adopted at a lot of institutions. Here at Brigham, we do perform HIFU, and I will preface this by saying that, you know, it was only FDA approved in 2018. So we don't have long-term data with regards to, you know, decades to predict outcomes from using this. And so for the most part, it's usually on trial, right? With regards to patients who are treated with this. With regards to the risk category that this is used for, most patients that are in that high-risk group will not get HIFU, right? This is focal therapy. Those patients in the high-risk group need definitive treatment, whether that's the radical prostatectomy or radiation to the whole gland. For some patients in active surveillance, this can be a good adjunct if they are sort of anxious and just they want something done for their prostate cancer. Where I feel like this has a big impact will be for salvage therapy. Okay, so salvage meaning that you've had some sort of treatment and now the cancer has come back. And so you take, for instance, a patient who's been radiated for prostate cancer, but now the cancer has come back and it's only localized in the prostate. So traditionally, what options have we had? You can do what's called a salvage prostatectomy. That's where you go back and you take out that prostate where it's already been radiated. And as you can imagine, what radiation does is it melts all the tissue around. So everything's sort of fused together. So those natural planes where you operate and tease things apart, they're all gone. And so for a salvage prostatectomy, high risk that you get into the rectum. So there's a high risk that you're going to have a colostomy. You have to bring the rectum up. High risk that you get into that sphincter that keeps you dry. In that case, afterwards, you're probably going to be incontinent, so leaking urine. So high complications from salvage prostatectomy after radiation. HIFU, this is a place where you can actually target that lesion that's lighting up after treatment, and you bypass a lot of these side effects.
Mhm.
So again, not very long-term data with regards to outcomes for primary treatment. Trials are ongoing and will let us know how these compare to traditional treatments. And again, HIFU is being offered here at Brigham. So now let's touch base with regards to radiation. Again, you think about traditional brachy versus external beam. One of the advancements which we use at all our sites at MGH and here as well is something called a spacer. So it's essentially, if you're getting radiation, one of the side effects you get can be scattered from the radiation to the organs around. So that could be the rectum, the bladder. You can imagine that if you're radiating this, you can have effects here, you have effects here. And so spacer essentially is an inert material that's placed between the prostate and the rectum. And again, so once you're radiating here, you have a little buffer with regards to the rectum, bladder, and you have less side effects and fewer complications, okay? And so that's one of the advancements in this field, and that's something that we use here as well. And so that's for localized cancer. With regards to advanced prostate cancer, again, now that's cancer that has spread outside of the prostate. At this point, you're starting to think about systemic therapy. So medications that are either given by IV or orally that treat the cells all around the body. So relugolix is the first oral FDA-approved gene-enriched antagonist, and that's widely available. That's available here as well. Immunotherapy is not widely used. It was the first one approved for immune therapy in the metastatic space. But prostate cancer, like we've shown from a lot of research, is really not immune sensitive. So it's not surprising that a lot of people do not use CYP-T. Pembro, it's not a new medication. It's been approved for a lot of other disease processes, bladder, kidney, and in the prostate cancer space, that's now being used as of June of 2020. Rucaparib and olaparib, this one is making a lot of headlines recently. Both approved in May of 2020 for metastatic prostate cancer. And these are for patients with DNA mismatch repair mutations. And so this is used in the breast cancer space, ovarian cancer space, and now in the prostate cancer space. And so just to, sort of start bringing it home, for localized disease, 10 survival is excellent at around 98%. And the vast majority of patients are diagnosed in this stage. However, once it's spread to other parts of the body, that drops significantly to about 30% at 5 years, okay? So really the goal is to catch patients early, treat if it's indicated, and not miss that window of cure. Just to highlight some of the work that we're doing here at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and Brigham is, some basic science work or what we call translational work. So in the lab, what can we find out from at the individual patient level for genes that are risk factors for getting advanced disease, and how can we bring that to the bedside? So this is one of those genes. It's called CHD1. Don't worry about all the text. Just know that it's responsive to those PARP inhibitors, so the olaparib and rucaparib that I just highlighted. And what we know is that this gene is implicated in about 10% of most prostate cancers. Work from our lab has shown that this gene is actually differentially deleted in African-American patients, so about 45%. And so you can imagine that this could be a potential source of discrepancy or one of the leading reasons why African-Americans may be at more risk to getting, high-risk disease. And so with regards to PARP inhibitors, again, if these genes play a role in sensitivity to PARP inhibitors, then it lends itself to think that if African Americans have a higher rate of deletion of this gene, then we're probably more sensitive to using these PARP inhibitors. And so that's what some of the work we're doing in the lab is looking at. We're looking at primary cells and how they're sensitized to PARP inhibitors. This obviously is still basic work. We still will take a while to move to a translational level. But again, these are sort of the ideas of doing basic science research, looking at community-specific deletions that affect our community, and how we can bring that to the bedside. And so to summarize, again, when we think about cancer, really we want to hone around those three questions. Is cure possible? We know it is possible for the vast majority of patients because we're seeing patients in the early stage. Is cure necessary? Maybe not for most patients, right? So for those patients in that grade group 1, that low risk group, it's not necessary at that point. But we do have to follow. And if patients progress, is it possible when it is necessary? And the hope there is that last question, the answer is yes, based on the work we're doing and stringent follow-up. So with that, I'll stop there. And I think we have time for questions down the road. And so I'll be around to answer those. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is wonderful. And I'm sure we are going to have some questions. But before we get to the questions, we do have one of our testimonial folks here. Ronald, can you unmute yourself? Ronald Roberts?
Yes, how you doing?
Oh, good. Ronald, can you share with the group here this evening your experience with prostate cancer?
I'm just in, well, I've been battling with some other things too, but I'm just in the just watch and see stage. So that's about all.
Can you share some of the experiences you've had, like when you were first diagnosed many years ago?
Yeah, that was shocking because when I got diagnosed, it was after getting the Gleason, I guess you call it Gleason score checked. I got a call from the doctor and he wanted me to come in the office, but because of where I live, it was hard to get there. So I had to hear it while I was on my cell phone, standing on the street corner. And yeah, but you know, I think the thing is really to get tested, and I just wish more people would do it more often.
So when you're out and about among your peers, do you encourage them, especially younger ones now at age 40, to go and actually have an exam?
Excuse me. It was, you know, it was easier before COVID. Now with everything, that's just upset things. And I'm not around as many people. I'm trying to be careful
Because of the COVID.
Yeah, but that changed everything. So the discussion doesn't always come up. I think it comes up more of them getting vaccinated for COVID.
But you will definitely share what you do know.
Yeah, especially after this presentation tonight. Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah,
Well, we have Dr. Maduke here, and we have Dr. Stern here, so that they're going to be answering some questions. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stern and Dr. Maduke to take any questions that the group might have. Don't be shy. You just have to unmute yourselves. So we can hear the question.
Well, we are getting questions. Can you please provide your perspective on the importance of screening of prostate cancer in Black men?
Yeah. I think screening is in prostate cancer is very important. You know, some people will, they have these misconception that prostate cancer is a disease, men die with, not from. And that's true for most men, right? I mean, most men that die, at least on autopsy, will have prostate cancer that did not kill them. They died from something else. But for a lot of men, especially African-American men with family history, or men of African descent, they will die from prostate cancer. And so it's crucial that we screen, and that screening can entail whether it's PSAs, the elevated MRIs for better targeting. And that saves lives, right? Because we don't miss that window of cure. There's a big gap with regards to, especially in the African American community, knowing their family history, right? These men just don't talk about this. And so they don't know if your father had prostate cancer. Well, I know my father died from something, but I'm not sure what killed him. And that history is important, right? Because if you have a positive family history, especially if it stays at a young age, then we know that there could be a genetic predisposition there. And so that's a person that might need to get screened earlier. Now, not just your father, your mother, your sister. We know that one of the risk factors for developing prostate cancer is the BRCA2 gene, right? So that's the same gene that predisposes you to breast or ovarian cancer. And so when I see my men in clinic, I'm not just asking, did your father have prostate cancer? Did your mom have breast cancer? Did your sister have ovarian cancer? Because that could be a clue that you could have a genetic mutation. And BRCA2 and 1, it's a germline mutation that's carried in men and women, and that can predispose you to getting prostate cancer. So the family history is important, screening is important, and if you are diagnosed, talk to your children, talk to your family, let them know as well, because that saves lives.
Thank you so much, and I will share a screen for a second, and I want to show the last slide I demonstrated, and I want to point out that Prostate Cancer Equity Program is here. Help is here for everyone. Physicians like Dr. Madeke, who are leading the world in the research and clinical care, made themselves available not only for educational events we are having today, but for providing clinical care to everyone with specific focus on Black men. So if you have any question whether or not to get screening, if you need any if you were diagnosed with prostate cancer and you're seeking a second opinion, if your screening came out in a way that your physicians are not sure about, if it is entirely normal, if you're facing possibility of biopsy or treatment, just remember, biopsy cannot be undone, treatment cannot be undone. Before you have biopsy, before you have treatment, before you have screening, you have an option to have access to physicians like Dr. Madeke and his colleagues at Margiela Brigham and others. Appointments can be in person or virtual. I know it's a little difficult for Martha's Vineyard men because it's a remote, you're in a remote location. Virtual communications made it much easier. And I want to point out, help is here. If you have any questions before or after screening, biopsy, or treatment, please contact Tricia Keeney at AdMeTech Foundation, our statewide coordinator of Prostate Cancer Equity Program, and she will help you get connected with physicians like Dr. Madeke and other leading prostate cancer experts in the state. Tricia, would you like to share for a minute or two? Tricia is our community coordinator. Would you like to share for a minute or two why you're so passionate about Prostate Cancer Equity Program?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Tricia, and I'm the coordinator of the program. If you have questions about the program or just want a second opinion, please feel free to email me at tricia.kinney@admetechfoundation.org or call at the number mentioned on the slide. I think the Prostate Cancer Equity Program is very important as it's one step to eradicating the health disparities, which is so prominent, especially in the state of Massachusetts amongst with the prostate cancer disease. So yeah, please feel free to We're only one call away, so please feel free to contact AdMeTech Foundation to join our program.
Thank you so much, Tricia. Do we have any other questions?
Ronald, did you have any questions?
No, I'm just appreciate this program, but thank you.
Thank you so much. Ike, any take-home messages from you?
The how do the people being live stream? Is there a different live stream of people that can chime in for questions?
On Facebook, there are no questions on this time.
Okay.
I've been observing. We have a few people. We have a but nobody's having any questions.
I just wanted to chime in here and ask this one question. Dr. Maduka, you referenced the gene, doing genetic testing. I always know that it's always a challenge to get people to go forward and be a part of any type of research. But I think it's easier when we educate people about genetic testing to get them to do both hand in hand. And so I just want to say that for all of us, whether it be your family member or whether you be out in the community or whether you be an educator or whomever, it's most important to share that with these individuals so that they understand, knowing the genetic background, and then being able to be part of a research is going to help people in the near future.
And it is going to help men who are participating in research, because historically in this country, the best physicians lead research and the best patient care for cancer patients or for any of people at risk of patient care of cancer is obtained through clinical trials in this country.
And to that point of clinical trials, it's no secret that we're addressing disparities, and in clinical trials, we know that, as is common with a lot of things where there's a disproportionate amount or lack of amount of African American patients, a lot of these trials that the data is based used to make recommendations for prostate cancer screening or treatments lack African American patients, right? Yeah. And so when you look at these nomograms or predictions, how do they apply to African American patients? And we know that they don't apply it very well. And so there's some work that we're doing on the continent with Dana-Farber, where we're looking and we're plugging in the genetic information from African patients, using that to make a risk nomogram, and we've applied that to patients on the continent as well as African American patients here. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen is that those nomograms that use the information from those African patients predict with higher accuracy and better accuracy than the nomograms that we use now. And it's not rocket science, right? If you're using a nomogram based on 95% Caucasians and 5% Africans or African Americans, it's not going to predict as well as one that's based on mostly African patients. So we need to seek out these research opportunities, be enrolled in these trials, so that it can reflect our genetic makeup and can better predict our outcomes when it's used to dictate our care.
Right.
So participation in clinical trials, which is so important for Black men, is going to benefit not only actual men participating in clinical trials, but many other Black male, many other Black men. Yeah. For prediction of risk, for clinical outcomes, for everything. So we really would encourage Black men to consider participating in clinical trials that will benefit him and will benefit many generations to come.
Have we figured out how to get some of this information narrowed down so that we can use it in the high schools, younger males in the high school to be able to be start with the education so they can go home and help to educate their parent and their uncles and whatever caretaker. I think that that's so important.
Dr. Andrade, I think that starting in high school is a little early because I understand that your point is about high school kids educating their parents. The best data we have that screening prevention can help men starting with the age of 40. We have no evidence supporting that any kind of medical interventions will help men, including Black men, before the age of 40.
Right.
However, just raising awareness, raising awareness with high school students, asking high school students to talk to their fathers and grandfathers, I think it's a great idea.
I didn't know if we had any materials that we could distribute out at this point. And I think this question came up last year as well, if you recall. And we were going to look into it.
Yeah, we'll send you a lot of materials about prostate cancer equity program, and Trisha can resend those. And Trisha can also send you 2-page educational, 2-page, it's essential 1-page, 2 sites. Brief summary of why screening is important.
Yeah, that's great that we can share.
And once again, prostate cancer equity program here, it's a unique program. We are leading the world in creating a prostate cancer equity program with people like Ike and his colleagues at Mass General Brigham. And Martha's Vineyard Hospital is associated with Mass General Brigham, to my knowledge. And the help is here. If you need any help, if you have any questions, please contact Trisha. And we'll be able to match you up either with Mike or somebody else. All of your questions, all of your concerns will be addressed.
Well, we want to thank you so very, very much. Were there any other questions? So seeing none at this time, again, we want to thank all our speakers, Dr. Maduke, Dr. Stern, for answering our questions, for giving us this education tonight. And the ladies that are here are going to carry this information home to their husbands, significant others, brothers, whomever, because it's just so, so very important. We also want to thank the staff at AdMeTech. That's Thomas Satham and Emma Collard. And Trisha, who was just speaking with us, for doing all that they are doing to help get the education information out there to our masses of people. And we look forward to a continued partnering with the AdMeTech Foundation. And again, getting the materials and the information disseminated to the people that are going to help, that will need the help and will be thankful to have the help. I can only say thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
We just got a comment from Kari that she passed the information from the event in 2019 and her 3 sons got tested. Thank you so much, Kari.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
Have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maduke, Dr. Stern. God bless. Thanks, Ronald, and everybody for attending.